Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic. It's Mike King here coming to you from the Branch Museum, here with my good friend Lisa Dance. So if you have never been to the Branch Museum, it is an amazing place here in downtown Richmond. There's something here for everyone. It's been a while since I've been back, but it is truly an honor to be here today. Lisa Dance on the other end is our UX expert, and I learned a lot of things from her about processes and user experience. When you come here to the branch, the user experience is amazing. We just had some people walk in. Hey, have a run of the place. This is what we're doing. Have a good time. You can learn something here. But you did make the guests welcome. Lisa, tell us who you are, what you do, and what we're doing here today.
Certainly. So this segment is UX Happens in RVA, and I'm Lisa Dance. I'm a user experience and customer experience strategist at Service. And on the show, we try to make user experience and customer experience accessible and give tips and insights to make sure that your business or organization has the great customer experience that you would like, because that definitely helps with retention and revenue. So, yeah, we're on location today at the Branch Museum, and we have two great guests. We have Katie Foster and Katie Hoak. And tell us a little bit about yourself and the Branch Museum.
Sure. So I'm Katie Foster, I'm the acting director, and something that makes the Branch Museum a little bit different is that none of us, I think, have a formal museum background. I'm a hospitality girl, so I also think about museum from user experience. Katie and Kristen Cavallo hail from the marketing world, which I think led to this show as a natural progression. And the Branch Museum's a little bit different than other museums as well. We're like Richmond. We keep it a little weird here. We like to think we have the finger on the pulse of things, and we're not mired down by any red tape, which I think we'll talk about a little bit with Nicholas Galliman's work as well. So yeah, there's something special happening here. Good sense of community and something a little bit avant-garde, I think.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm Katie Hoak. I'm the marketing director here at the museum. And like Katie said, I originally came from an advertising background. And I think what has been so fascinating for me is I've always been a really big lover of history. I originally wanted to be Indiana Jones, wanted to be an archaeologist. And so coming to the branch feels like I've just arrived at a place I've been walking to for a very long time. And what I love about the branch is that we are Virginia's only design museum. We are in this gorgeous historical home that is just full of architecture and lots of good design details. But I think what's fun about being a museum design is that design is inherently so accessible. It is all around us, from the phones that we keep in our pocket to the clothes we choose every day to the way that the aisles of the stores that we visit every day are laid out. And so it really means we can bring in some really interesting things, and it just feels immediately inviting, I think, because you walk in and you feel like, I understand this. I use this in my everyday life and I can really connect to it. And I think that's really nice. And I think that's part of the reason this place has had a little bit of a second coming, and people are really starting to take notice and come and visit a bit more.
You have some really cool events here. Being from up north, the South has a history that the North just doesn't. You walk in here, it just takes you back in time. And then you look at the architecture here, it's kind of like there are wow moments. So very quickly, I know we have some things to get to. What's it like when a person comes and they've never been here before and you see the wow factor?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like to joke that we get to work in a castle every day and
Yeah,
plan
for sure.
events and exhibits. And I think that this house was designed to wow. This is actually a holiday home. The branches were really influential in Richmond. They actually started the public bathhouses, the Federal Reserve, the Cabell
Oh.
Library, the VMFA. Branch was the first president of the VMFA. They started the Richmond Symphony, and even the Easter Parade was a form of protest. They didn't want to pave over Monument Avenue. So there's a lot of rich history, and this is where they would celebrate for the holidays. And when people come in, I think it has the intended effect of celebration and also a little bit of a flex. It is a pretty spectacular
Yes,
home.
one of the things when you're riding down Monument, and so I've come in before, but I think I parked on the street, and I've never done that around the building. It looks different when you come into the parking lot and you see the building from that way. It's totally different. And it is truly Americana. Speaking of Americana, that's the segue there. America 250 is where we are celebrating America. So you guys have the celebration here. You guys have it. Tell us about that and how it got here.
Sure, yeah. So the piece that started it all was Nicholas Gallinin's totem pole in there. If you haven't seen it, it's a spectacular piece. Nicholas Gallinin is a native Alaskan of the Sitka tribe, I believe. And he hand carves these totems and then painstakingly paints on top of them to blend into wall wallpaper, which is, of course, a traditionally English wallpaper. So it's a really powerful piece. It's really beautiful. We knew that we had it here. And in the fall of 2025, he was actually kicked out of the Smithsonian in the wake of the EI. Everybody was rolling back what they were doing. So I think that we're uniquely positioned. While the world was heading in one direction, we wanted to head in the other. And that got us thinking about what the actual experience is in America versus the story that we're telling ourselves. Our creative director, Kristen Cavallo, again hails from the branch world. So I think that
Yes.
sort of thinking was really natural for her, and thus Americana was born.
Yeah, I think what is interesting about our take on the 250th in particular is so many exhibits that we've seen are really a bit of a history lesson. It's looking back at where we have been. And we wanted to do things differently here. This is inherently about the design. And when you think about America, it is probably the most well-branded place maybe on earth when we look at the stories that we've told about ourselves through the last 250 years. And you see that show up across everything that we do, from our space program to our currency to the Harley tanks on the wall behind us, and this idea of like, what is the identity we've sent out to the world, but then in reality, where are the gaps, and are we really living up to the identity and the promises that we've made? And I think that it's a really interesting way for a viewer to experience something, because often when you walk into a history exhibit, you may feel a little bit disassociated from it. It's like, oh, in a time, I'm not living during that time. But when you come in and things that are a part of your everyday life and you see it as a brand that you actively can participate in, it really puts you more in the driver's seat and helps you have a different perspective about it.
One of the things when Mike King was here at the Branch Museum, when you talked about Kristen, that was a time when everyone is running away from something, and you guys lean into it. That's something different. I've been stationed in Alaska, and I walked by that piece. It took me a moment to realize there was something there. All I see is, I noticed is the wallpaper. And then I turn around and I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. So you guys at that moment, you guys are looking at the idea of what America was. You guys are looking at, okay, where are the gaps? The idea of that one is, are we really living up to the idea of what America could be and should be?
Yeah.
And you guys are it's documented here.
Yeah, I think we were very intentional when we looked at what we wanted to put on the wall. And I think something that really sticks out for me is in the gallery behind us, we have the quote that appears on the bottom of the Statue of Liberty, which is in part, give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That has been essentially our welcome mat for the last almost 250 years and really what's built this nation. But when you look at some of the choices we've made or the people that have been left out, you realize there is a little bit of tension there, and that maybe we haven't fully delivered on what we said.
One of the things that one of the good friends, really, Bill Martin, used to always talk to me about, he was my first guest on my radio show 6 years ago. And he talked to me about what the branch was. And that was what got me started. When you look at, when you have a historical person like that talking about a historical place, and you said you guys are in a resurgence. I came in 2014, not exactly what had happened before then, but it's the place you guys are generating a lot of buzz.
Thank you.
Yeah, we like to think so. I think that it's been a slow progression to this point, but I think in this past year we dropped architecture from our name. We brought in the aperture and became the Branch Museum of Design. And we have raised the money to fix the house. We're going through restorative efforts. We are having 5 exhibits a year. I don't think any other museum can boast that kind of turnaround. We're having Guggenheim Fellows exhibiting. So I think it has been in a lot of ways a turnaround story. And yeah, we're really lucky to be a part of the momentum.
Okay, really quickly, how can people get information about the Branch Museum?
I'm so happy that you asked.
I'm sure that's what I'm here for. We're here to make you guys even better. We'll give you more hype.
Yeah, so we have our new Viz ID is, which by the way, sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but if you look at it on its side, we pulled the DNA from the house and made the steeped roofs the B. So if you shift it, It's all about shifting perspectives. It makes the bee, and we have this award-winning new Viz ID. We just opened our new website, thanks to Katie Hoak here. Painstakingly done. And if you go onto that website, you can learn about us. You can sign up for our newsletter, is a great way to get involved. Follow us, subscribe on social media, or pop in. We're happy to give you a behind the scenes tour. And I think everybody here does a really good job of making time for curiosity. We invite that here.
One of the things, so we're going to get to Lisa Dance, our user experience expert. We're going to get to her in just a moment. But I got the mic now. And
Go forward.
exactly. I'm like, oh, here we go.
I'm not stopping a good
I
conversation.
got three ladies here with notes, and so here I am, just shooting from the hip. You both are not in the traditional sense of historical, whatever this is called. Like, so you have marketing and you have advertising and hospitality. Talk about that, and so Katie being tapped to be the leader after someone who's a leader who everyone knows. So what was that like to say, hey, we want you to take the reins now?
Flattering. A bit intimidating. Kristen Cavallo is a giant in our community, and she's a breath of fresh air. She blows in a whole new energy, and so it can be intimidating in a lot of ways to come in. Those are some high heels to fill, but she is still around at a mentoring capacity, and my expertise is very specific. So I have a degree in studio art and then also hospitality management with a business minor. So my expertise is very specific, and that I make creative vision sustainable. So I was a part of the turnaround prior to Kristen's coming, helping make this a sustainable place that could afford to keep the lights on and could have exhibits. And so in many ways, this is me continuing my trajectory,
Okay.
but with the added benefit of Kristen's mentorship. So it was an easy yes for me to step into that role, knowing that I had her support, and we all get the vision here. Everybody here is, I think, in their own way, a rock star, and I'm not alone. I have an amazing team.
There you go. Are you guys a nonprofit?
We are.
Okay, so I always say change in the world ain't cheap, easy, or free. Money got to change hands somewhere. You got that project. So Katie, there you go. It's the marketing piece. A lot of that starts with the buzz.
Yes.
Don't start with the buzz. So I see I noticed that there's the new logo, but I didn't know exactly, but it captured my attention. Talk about the marketing piece and how we get from here to all the things you want to get done.
Yeah, thank you so much. When Kristen and I came in, we both felt a little bit like fish out of water because we came from the marketing world. We're stepping into this museum role. It's a nonprofit. We don't really have any money at all. And so we're trying to figure out how to do this. And so a lot of times I think you do call in favors and you ask people for help. And oftentimes I think if the challenge and the ask is really interesting, people want to help, or they can see the vision of where you're going. They want to help to make things better. And so we were incredibly fortunate that we were able to partner with this really amazing design studio, Mullen Lowe, that Kristen had worked with in her time at Mullen. And we gave them the brief of, we want to be able to preserve the history of this home, but we want to bring this forward. We're a home for design. How do we bring that to life? And as Katie had mentioned earlier, they had this amazing idea to look at the actual architecture of the building and took the V shape of our roof and then repeated it and made it into the letter B. And what really hit home for me, hit me in the gut to know that this was the right thing, was they talked about it was something that made you shift your perspective when you looked at it. And I think it's something that all good design asks us to do. And it's certainly something that this city, Richmond, has done itself. When you look at what people from outside of Richmond might think of us in terms of a role in the Civil War and the former capital of the Confederacy, but then when you come and you actually walk the streets of the city, you realize it's changed so much. This city and her inhabitants have shifted their perspective. And the fact that we are placed here on Monument Avenue, right where Jefferson Davis was toppled, it just felt it was so uniquely ownable to us and something we could really live into. We're a home for design, but we're also a place that asks you to shift your perspective. And that got me just so excited because I think that's something that is, you want to galvanize around that idea. And so it has been a really great way to propel us back into this conversation. And going back to Kristen and I feeling we don't know what we're doing, when we realized that really what was in front of us first and foremost was it was a branding challenge. We had changed our name. We needed to reintroduce this place to people who maybe had come like you in 2014, thought the building was beautiful, but didn't know if they had a reason to come back. And so I think giving this fresh point of view was a reason to come back. And then it really just became, okay, if we are about shifting perspectives and design really is so accessible and it's everywhere, like what kinds of things do we want to bring in the building that are interesting for people? So I think so much of the marketing sometimes is really just bringing in exhibits that people feel like they can connect to. And Kristen, give her all the credit, when she was interviewing to be the executive director, she pitched the idea of the exhibit we did last summer, which was Ruined and Refined. She wanted to showcase all of these beautiful remade motorcycles down this long hallway here. She was like, the tension of having these modern machines set against the beautiful backdrop of this building is going to be so stunning. And the board completely agreed. So that's the kind of rebelliousness this museum needs. And so I think that was such a breath of fresh air and something you don't expect to see. And so that really set us off on a really interesting course of what kind of things can we bring in? And we had the amazing opportunity to bring in Christian Siriano, who, and now Project Runway. And I think what really worked about Christian and Ashley, who is the painter that we paired him with, Ashley Longshore, both of those artists really have done a great job of connecting with people and really like everyday people, making everyday people feel seen and celebrated just the way that they are. And I think that has been really their superpower. And I think that we saw that people were really drawn to it and wanted to come see that. The fact that we were able to have something of that caliber that felt it should have been in New York or LA and it was here at the branch and it was only $10. You spend more at Starbucks getting a scone and a coffee every morning. And here we had this opportunity for people to come see this. But I think it's been a little bit of the momentum of changing our vision, bringing in exhibits that are really interesting, but then hopefully getting people interested that they want to give us money, because a lot of what we've done so far has really been word of mouth or just utilizing our own channels. But I would love to do more. So, yes.
There you go.
Sorry.
No, that was, sometimes, when you're trying to make something older than new and make it hip, it's like me with Meta Ray-Bans. My glasses, right in the middle, the message comes through and it starts talking. So then it's like your granddad trying to work with technology. It's not a pretty thing. So, I'm so sorry. So Lisa Dance, we are here. We've seen some of their user experience. We've seen some guests come here. Let's talk about the part where you find interesting that you said to me, Mike, you got to go to the branch.
Certainly. Initially, when I talked with Kristen Cavallo, we were talking about wayfinding, because in the old historic building, how do you navigate? In museums, how do you navigate the exhibits and different things like that? And that's a particular experience. But then you've had so many good exhibits, because I visited the Christian Siriano exhibit, the best products exhibit that was afterwards. And then we were talking about the Americana one and examining America as a brand. And that was interesting because the exhibit kind of blurs America as the government and then America as a corporate brand, right? And that was interesting. And I wanted to say, how did you all think about that and how to in navigating that distinction between America's the brand as a government or as a corporate brand? So.
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of stuff to unpack. But in terms of the actual layout and the flow, so moving this room actually would have been where you would have been introduced to the branch estate if you're coming for a party. And it's very much intuitively the place that people enter first, starting with the mythology of America. The color behind me is supposed to emulate the dirt road, which is, we have cowboys, we have NASA, we have Harley Davidson, we have the open road. This is the dream element of America. And then as you walk around, you walk into what I call the reckoning room. And the way that's painted is it's meant to purposely look like it's still being painted, because the great experiment that is America is still being authored. So that's where you get pieces that beg the question, like who has been excluded or who has been made to be invisible? Like where are these promises not living up to the expectations? And I think that's a beautiful flow through the exhibit. You asked a second part there. Oh, the blurred lines. For me, I think that you can't really talk about America. There's no distinction between corporate and government. a little bit off script. This is me as an individual, not necessarily the stance of the branch. But looking at this current administration, Trump made $3 billion while being in his second term, which is certainly an extreme example, but every president usually gets a little bit wealthier to the degree of 1 or 2 million. When you think about America and the powers that be, it is both the government and it is both corporations. It's the nature of capitalism. And I was chatting a little bit before this about how I tend to get stuck in the negative. I tend to think about the reckoning portion of that. But what's been nice for me about the exhibit is that story cuts both ways. So you look at denim, for example, which was made to be a durable material. It was used by the Navy. It became the uniform of the working class. But then brands have taken something that had utility and was more or less in some ways like civic and governmental, and has taken it and it's infiltrated high fashion, national identity. So there's a lot of joy in that too. And again, I think if you're looking at what the brand of America is, we are capitalism. We're both government and corporate. And I don't think we're blurring those lines so much as the lines are already blurred. Yeah.
And sorry, there's a piece down here that you showed me yesterday where it's different brands, and they're like brands that are government and corporate brands, and that are all familiar, all in one piece. And so that kind of does like sum it up, at least in that one.
Yes, the piece by Phil Noel Consumption, it's all ballpoint pen, and it's this conglomeration of logos that you said. It's everything from Hello Kitty to the FBI logo, and you know them in equal measure and instantly recognize what those things stand for. And I think you make some really great points. You look at something, the NASA worm logo, that is a government agency, but that has become a beloved sense of pride and this idea of space travel. And I think you look at the Artemis space shuttle mission and just like how that felt like such a light, happy moment that we also desperately needed. But then you look at things, even the words written on our currency. And when you really break it down and you look at that, those are government issued symbols, but those say something about the place, and what you put or don't put on those says something about us as a country as well. So I think Katie's right. There's really no way to tease those apart because it's such a huge part of our identity and has been from the very beginning. Since the beginning, this has been a radical experience that has taken the world by storm in some ways, and we've done things differently, and it's been interesting to see how that's played out.
And that's a good point, that it's existed. It's not just, it didn't come just from this. And people probably aren't necessarily having thought about that teasing. So this is a good time to think about it. Oh, Mike has a
Oh, no, I don't have a question.
Okay.
I'm waving to our guests here, please. Take care, fellas. Have a good one.
Thanks for coming.
Come back and say yes.
Look, Mike, you usually have a question.
I
So.
do, but I got overwhelmed. I'm like, hey guys, see you later. Thanks for. So for folks who don't realize, right before that, a couple guests came in. I'm like, hey, can we interview you? One was an architect, the other dad was an architect. One was from Richmond, and his friend was here. It was just showing the lure and the pull of the place, and just talked about what they were experiencing, why they came to the branch. So they were leaving. I had to say bye. Come on. I was raised by Dave and Nita. You got to be hospitable.
Yeah, there's that hospitality.
So, but the one part about it is, I think a lot of times I've never heard it put that with there's a corporate side and there's a government side. And I've been doing this show now, talking to business people every day, from top to bottom, whether it is we talk to the governor, we talk to little kids who are entrepreneurs. You never had that part put together that the two really are. And I got to see the exhibit because that's something that we look at. I always say America's an experiment. Look at the Olympics. You see the Australian team, they kind of look, and you see the Chinese team, they kind of look, and England has a little flavor, Canada has, and then here comes America. We're just looking, just coming at it. Look at these guys. Because we have something of everything. A student come in and he talked about the lure of America. You know, it's like, what do you guys think? Back in your home in Africa, what is the question? Have you ever met Beyonce?
Yeah.
Does money really grow on trees in America? Because that's what the world thinks.
Yeah.
Regardless of this administration right now, we wake up every day saying, I'm going to America. The Americans say, I'll go to that place on vacation. But people come every day. What you guys have done here is amazing. This is so Harley Davidson at our house in York, Pennsylvania. They have Harley Week and it's rolling in town. It is an American brand.
Yeah, the open road, the romance of that is very America. Hollywood, Beyonce, all of that. And opportunity is a weird thing to talk about that belongs in both rooms because there is so much opportunity in America, but then there are people who have been excluded from that as well. I mean,
But the
Yeah,
myth
I
of it
think-
is there.
yeah, the
like,
myth of it is there.
to your point about the brown color, I think that people see that idea of the myth of there's this open road, you can come and be anything here.
Yes.
Whether or not that's actually true, that is easier for some and not very easy for
That's
others.
the mindset.
But that is the mindset that if I have that opportunity, maybe I can become something. And I think that has been what's been such a strong draw for so many people outside looking in.
One of the things about being in the Army, I've gone to a lot of places, always joke and say, America is like teenagers who have money. That is not a good combination.
That sounds
Young people with money, so you can do whatever you want, go wherever you without the constraints. So maybe I shouldn't do. And I look
So
at that.
good.
Yeah. So Lisa,
Yes,
what
sir.
are we with?
Yeah.
Friction points. I always learn from Lisa about friction points, things that make it easier or harder. When you guys hear from the guest, what's something that stands out that said, when I left there, I had the greatest time.
Yeah, something that I think is different. There's a lot of 250 exhibits out there, and I think Katie was touching on this. A lot of them are like beautiful retrospectives. Some of them are maybe romanticized or glorified, and some of them are very honest and brave. But to your point, Lisa, we're doing something really different here. We're not talking about America as a history lesson. We're talking about brand identity and personal identity. And so I think that what's different about our exhibit is it breaks the fourth wall. I think the people that come and make their way through it, it starts conversations and it begs the question of what do I want to do next? I think, sorry, Mike, my ADHD is getting the best of me and I forgot the original question.
I don't even read.
You have
But
perfect
again,
answer.
it doesn't.
Well,
But see, this
Yeah.
Kate, she's the marketing person with the details. Okay, what did we miss?
No, you guys were doing great. And I think that people really do. You were talking, what do people say when they walk away from this? And I think that a lot of what they see in the second room is really interesting what you saw when you walked by the totem and you didn't even see it. And that kind of hits you in the gut. You're like, oh my gosh, it's the exact point that he's making, that this idea of assimilation is right there in front of us. And sometimes we don't even see it. And so I hope that people are walking away feeling like they have learned something that maybe they didn't know. They have seen something in a different light. But I hope they also walk away hopeful. To Katie's point about the way that we treated the walls in the second room, this is a story that's still being written. I think what's so frustrating for me, at least being a very type A person, is I always want to finish it. I want to get to the end. I want to close that book. And we will never be able to do that. We are only a chapter in this history. But we do have the ability to help write the chapter we're currently in. And so I hope that is something that people are taking away, that even if this feels like there's some things that I've learned that are hard, I still have the choice to say, what story do I want to tell? What choices do I want to make as I move forward? I have power to do
One of
that.
the things that's a living, growing up, you always think about a museum as an old place, history. But it's a living, it now, before there was something here before, and now it's here, and now we're focused on this. This will be here for a while.
Yeah, and that's something that makes design different from other sorts of museums. Is design is lived in, it's taken out of the box. So I think it's central to what we're doing here. To go back to your question about what are people taking away, I do have a couple anecdotes. So we hope that people walk away with like thinking with an assessing eye, but also feeling a sense of hope. But at the opening, one of our regulars came out and I said, what did you think? And she's like, oh, it was a bit corporate for me. And I was like, we could say the same about America. The other thing that I thought was interesting, so a stopgap on the end is we have a draw your own American dream station. It's something for the kids. This exhibit is also for kids. I think there's a lot to see and to interact with. And I've been enjoying seeing how kids are conceptualizing the American dream. And a lot of it is just like beach. It's their envisioning paradise. But a lot of it is overwhelmingly, we have ballerinas, we have soccer players, we have doctors, we have a firefighter. So kids are coming away seeing themselves as being a part of the American dream. Their contribution is their American dream, which I just think is really beautiful and concise. Kids sometimes pick up on the messaging more so than adults.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that people have been coming with different experiences, and part of that conversation is almost part of the exhibit at this point.
Wonderful. And I think I chose this to have as a background because I thought we're looking at the frontier myth, but then we have the Harley Davidson, and that's just so iconic about America. And we've touched on before about people who may have been excluded from the America as a brand, right? And that's the same challenge that you can find. The same people who are often left out in that America, the brand, are also the same people that often can get left out in corporate brands and stuff like that. Is that something that you all thought about when you all were visioning to share?
Yeah, I think that it's all part of the same conversation. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the way to articulate it. But yeah, I think that because corporate culture is in the fiber of America, when people are excluded by the powers that be and by the larger culture that follow in corporate culture as well. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about on every level. Now we hope people have their own contributions to the conversation.
Definitely. And Katie, yesterday when we were looking at the painting with the toll and the statue and how that blends in, right? That's so much of how I now because it's about statistical probability. So the multiple voices get that's what the output is. So that the people who are outliers or underrepresented, then they disappear in that, just like the piece there. So that was so representative of what we have
What's
this
happening
time,
today.
now,
Yeah, I
right?
agree with that.
Yeah, I think when I think about America, there's the mythology of the great mixing pot. But really, people come to this country with all these beautiful traditions and all of this heritage. And in some ways, they have to check that at the door and they can't take that with them into this country. I think Nicholas Gallinan's piece is a great example of that erasure culture. I forget the actual Latin for it. It's like e pluribus unum.
Like pluribus unum.
Yeah, so
Out of
that
anyone.
exactly. And I think that's often looked at in a glorified way, but exactly like out of many one. To your point, when all of us, when it becomes one voice, there are voices that get lost in that noise. And I would love to see it flipped on its head, like out of one many.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
many distinctive voices and that difference of what people have in perspectives. Because I always say, I'm not an AI. I'm being facetious. When it flattens out and my sort of distinct voice is lost in there, then that's what I'm saying when I say that jokingly. And so we're getting ready to wrap up now, but in connecting this to user experience, one thing that I have a framework for like when people are developing a product or service or technology and making sure that they aren't putting potential harms out in the world, the first question is who's not here? And it talks about who's not here on the team, developing the idea, who they research with, who their participants are, but now with AI and data, who's in the data, right? And so who's not here, if you don't have those representative voices, the many and not the one, then you can put things out in the world that are harmful to people. So that's kind of the connection I was thinking when I first heard about this, like America, the brand, and then thinking about corporate and people's brand experience, what the brand has created and put out there versus what customers actually experience can be very different, right?
Yes.
And this has opened my eyes up in so many other different ways about how I'm thinking about America, the brand, and America corporate, and they're blending together.
I think this kind of talks a little bit more to the America side of it, but I think it's something you can apply to the brand side or to the corporate side as well. But I think the most patriotic thing you can do is look critically at your country, your organization, and ask that exact question: who is being left out? What are we doing really well, but who are we not serving? If we've got these really big, high aspirations, that's wonderful. And if some people are running benefiting from it, that's wonderful too. But we have to make sure that if we're serving everyone, that we're thinking about everyone. And so I think that is something that I've really enjoyed thinking about as we've put this together. And I think that, again, when we talk about this idea of being a patriot or patriotism, I think that people often think it just means waving your flag or waving your company's logo around and just saying we're perfect. And that's actually so false. There's this really great quote that has stuck with me over the last couple of years. As President Biden, he was at the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And he talked a lot about how if you want to be a great nation, you have to really come to terms with your dark side. You have to look at the good, you have to look at the bad, you have to look at the ugly. And in order to do that, you can move forward. And I hope that we are a great nation, and that is something we can do. And that's probably a bit heavy for Starbucks to talk about, but Starbucks can think about that in the same way. What are we doing really well for our customers? But where is it really hard for some people? Where can we do better? Because I hope that they want everyone to have a really great experience when they walk in the door. Just like if we are inviting people to come and be a part of this great experiment, I want them to do that too. I want them to feel this is exactly what I dreamed. Although no money trees, that's but Beyonce.
It may be easier to get to Beyonce than money going. That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, as we close out, I always ask leaders, how do you set your own corporate culture? And this goes right into what's the culture of America? And Katie as well. So Kristen had her time there. What would you want it to say 50 years from now when they look back at your time running a branch?
Ooh, good one. Let me sit with that question for a sec. I definitely want there to be a sense of community. And much like America, I want it to be a place of opportunity too. I think that teams succeed most. We have this expression here, give a damn. But I think that we ended up with people who came here for the passion and stayed here because of the change that they were able to implement. I think when I guess I just want to make opportunity for people to have opportunity, for people to make their own mark and make their own difference. Because I think that's where you get, I don't know, the best outcome. So I don't know if I answered that, but
You answered it. Katie, let's talk about the marketing side once again, because it always goes back to the money. We need, because when I talk to whether people are in fundraising, whatever, you have the people who come and give. And then you have the people, when things get really tight, those are the people that you call.
Yes.
Those are the people because they're in a whole different level of relationship with you. And we're in a relationship building business, ladies and gentlemen, because it ain't what you, my dad would always say, it's not what you know. People say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. My dad said, forget that. It's who knows you.
That's a good point.
So when
Yeah,
the Katie's call up, they're like, oh God, they're calling, the branch is gonna need some help. That's totally different, like Mark Smith and Midas says, or Parney, they say, when people call us, we started, yes. We started, yes. If you call me and say, Mike Henry, yeah, we can figure a way out. If it's like, I'm looking for an off-ramp.
Yeah.
So what you guys are doing here is amazing. Anything I can do to help. Lisa, thank you for the invitation, the gap. We don't even really think about it that way. You know,
That's where I live.
well,
there are people who get
Yeah.
lost. There are people who get lost along the way that don't have that opportunity, who ride by here all the time and never know what's in here. It could change a kid's life coming in here. I didn't know what was possible. One last time, how can people reach out there at the branch museum?
Go online, go check out our website, go to our socials. We're on Instagram and we're on Facebook. We try to do a really good job of sharing everything that's going on, and definitely sign up for our newsletter. It's free. I promise you I don't spam you. I send out one monthly newsletter. Sometimes I'll send out a follow-up if we've got some fun stuff going on, but that's really the best way to do it.
Really quickly, what you got coming up? Anything that we need to know about?
yeah, we have a whole mini concert series live at the branch. It's our version of a tiny desk concert. And it's a really great way to discover local music makers. Who did we have recently? We had Angela Easterling. She's like an Americana musician. We had her along with the Wienermobile, which is a bit of a flex for us.
That is, the way doesn't go just anywhere.
It doesn't.
To get that is one. Yo, look at me.
Yeah. So we had Weenie in the front and Party in the back for that one.
Like that.
But yes. So
That's a marketing deal right there.
When we talk about trying to be accessible and invite people in, we started a new series called Maker Studio, and it really is like please, we don't need to have any experience on what this workshop's about. We just want you to come and just bring your curiosity. And we are about to host our third one in early August. It's a poetry writing session, and we'll have snacks and we'll have some wine, which I think always helps with the creative juices. But Ty Phelps, who is a really excellent writer in the Richmond community, and is going to be talking a little bit about how to structure a poem and the design of a poem, which is so fascinating. And I never really thought about how line breaks and white space can inform how you read and absorb a poem.
And speaking of the Gap, we're also going to be hosting Veronica Jackson. She's the artist who did Blacktivist, and she's going to be talking a little bit more about who are these women that have been made invisible in history, but had such an amazing impact on America. And then behind me, we're also hopeful to bring Norm Clayson. He's the photographer who did the Marlboro cowboy photos, and his work was famously stolen. There's even there a very American story of intellectual rights. So we hope that you'll stay tuned and turn out to those lectures. And one last thing I did want to say about Americana is it could be a very divisive and derisive time, but when we go to a different country, we're all American.
Yes.
The reckoning and the myth making, it's part of the national identity. And those gaps, that is part of the American brand, that we've done that. And I think that I, for one, want to go to other countries and feel a sense of pride and want to write a chapter that I'm really proud of. So we're hopeful to do that. So some of our programming in our small corner of the world here.
Well, that's interesting. This is my third exhibit this year, so you all are definitely on my radar of events and happenings. So thanks for sharing that, and thanks for having us.